And we are live. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-hosts and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows. If you like what we're doing and would like to help support the show, visit patreon.com/afteractionproject. If you'd like to throw us some free support and appreciation, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star review on iTunes. I need somebody that has a better vocabulary than I do to rewrite that sentence. Tonight's episode, just like every episode, is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. Be sure to check out the other great podcasts on the Firearms Radio Network by visiting firearmsradio.tv. Tonight we are joined by Heather of High Caliber Firearms Training and Education and her student Rachel. Together we're going to bring y'all into the student seat of Heather's basic handgun course. And over the next 30 seconds or so, I will remember how to do a podcast since it's been 2 weeks since our last broadcast. But in the meantime, Andy, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you've been up to? I figure I'd throw you in the hot seat while I check the audio on all of the channels and all that good stuff.
Man, that's not even fair. Couldn't you just already pass it off to the guests? That's what I would want. Well, for me, so I've never been to SHOT Show, first of all. And every year I say I'm going to go, and every year I don't make it. So we decided to take our daughter to Vegas the weekend after SHOT Show for her 21st birthday. Just family. Had a great time. It was a lot of fun. But I think all you dirty people from SHOT Show left the crud there, because I came home and I got so sick. I got the flu. I was starting to talk to God and saying, please forgive me for all my sins, because I don't know if I'm making it out of this thing. It was that bad. You know, for 2 weeks straight, I was just in bed dying, literally. And so once I finally cleared that up, back to work, back to normal, and here on the podcast. So I'm glad to be alive. So if you guys missed me, I'm alive and well.
Nice. Yeah, I heard you brought this SHOT Show cred back with you, even though you missed it. I'm glad you've kept that to yourself.
I thought I was getting coronavirus. No joke. I was starting to really consider it, because I mean, not to be rude or mean or anything, but there are a lot of Asians in Vegas, and I was like seeing them all, and they wear masks and everything, and they're probably they're the smartest ones to wear masks out there, because they go home with no sickness, I'm sure. But yeah, I was a little concerned, to be honest, at first. I'm like, man, maybe I'm the one in New Mexico that's got this thing. It was that bad. Drink
Dos Equis and you'll be fine. All right, so Heather, why don't you talk to us a little bit about yourself and what got you into firearms training, and how I guess California is treating you in the endeavor of teaching folks how to be responsibly armed citizens.
Sure. Born and raised Southern California. I grew up, I feel like it's pretty kind of typical where my dad had a gun, but it was like, it's under the bed, don't touch it. It's in the closet, don't touch it. So I didn't grow up knowing firearms. And then I met my husband, who's prior military and law enforcement now. So 14 years ago, he got me into shooting. And then I started working for the California Rifle and Pistol Association in 2017. And then that's when I really got into Second Amendment rights. And the funny thing that started happening was I would get girlfriends would start calling me and saying, hey, can you teach me how to shoot? And I'd be like, yeah, of course. And then I started getting phone calls from friends of friends and friends of friends of friends. Hey, can you teach me how to shoot? So I kind of saw that there was a need for female instructors in Southern California. And I started my own business, High Caliber Firearms Training and Education, about a year ago. And I've trained about 250 people since. So California is treating me pretty well.
That's awesome. And Rachel was a student of yours in the basic handgun course. Rachel, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background with handguns and what led you to that basic handgun course?
Sure. So I'm an on-camera host and reporter, and one of my clients that I've worked with for the last couple of years is in the firearms industry. And I had never actually had any official training, any handgun basic safety, no training. And I had to, do a lot of interviews with people on the topic. And so you can do your research and learn a lot about just the basics, but it's so different when you have a handgun actually in your hand and you are, loading it and firing it and understanding it in a different way. And so I was like, that's it. I need to have some like official training because I just really wanted to have a different approach to it. And I Googled firearm training in Los Angeles, which is where I live, and where Heather trains. They came up, I called, and I was like, I need to come in. And they were like, great, you're going to love Heather. She's a woman too, and it's awesome, and she's the best, and like, you'll have a great time. And we did. Now, as far as like my background with handguns or guns of firearms of any sort, I mean, I grew up in the city of Chicago, like the actual city. My parents were not into hunting. No guns, guns are bad. They're dangerous. So I had a fear of them, I guess you could say, when I first started working in this field, because I just didn't know. And until I shot my first one, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't like I'm in control. They're not that scary once you really understand how they work and what you're doing. For somebody who wasn't brought up around them at all, just total city kid with no knowledge whatsoever of this world, it really changed. And I encourage people to really get out there and go take a course to try it, to take away that fear and learn more. And the more information you have, the less scary things are. That's a long way of saying that. That's how I ended up with Heather.
No, that's awesome. The first time you shot a handgun, was it in Heather's course, or had you shot before?
I had shot before, but not had any training, and just had somebody be like, here you go. Here's how this works. Pull the trigger. And, that's a little scary and intimidating for somebody who's never done that before. And that's why I was like, I need to go to Heather and really learn what the heck I'm doing here.
Talk to us, I guess, before we get into the class details, about your experience the first time shooting, because that really is the most critical shooting experience that folks will have. And we've talked to several people that will never shoot a handgun before, will never shoot a gun before, because the first time they shot it was a terrible experience, because they had gone out with buddies that thought it would be cool to give them a gun that was much larger than they could handle, and it really turned them off from shooting. So talk to us a little bit about your first time shooting a handgun.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing I shot was some giant rifle that was, mounted. It was in a very controlled environment at a range with a lot of experts and NRA safety people all around. So it was a very safe place to do it. And it was for my client in the firearms industry that I had access to do this. And at first I was like, no, I'm good. Let me just interview you about it. I'm good. I don't need to fire it. I'm okay. And my camera guy was like, Rachel, come on, just do it. Just like, go do it. Just rip the Band-Aid, And I did. I sat down. I told them, I was like, look, I have no idea what I'm doing. You have to walk me through every step. You have to tell me everything. And they really did. They handled it just as they should. They were like, this is, here's the bolt action. This is your trigger. You don't put your finger on it. And they really walked me through it. And then when I fired it, and I didn't poop my pants, I was like, okay, this is okay. Like, I am not so afraid anymore. I was like, all right, that was really loud. And I don't really know what happened, but this is awesome. And it took that fear away, like immediate fear of like going into just being so, like really jumpy around any kind of firearms, like anywhere. And I've enjoyed it ever since. And that's one of my favorite clients that I work with. And so going to Heather, I was very prepared. I was like, okay, I know some of this stuff, but I don't know everything, and I don't know how it all goes together. And I need to feel like I have that confidence with them, because when you're afraid and don't know how the handguns work or anything, any kind of firearm, that fear of the unknown is what is dangerous, one, and scary if you've never had any proper training.
Yeah, not pooping your pants the first time is a good thing. I will agree there for sure.
Yeah,
How-
I mean, I was like, am I alive? I didn't poop my pants. I'm sweating a little bit, but like everything is okay. I got this, you know.
That's
Not that I've
hilarious.
ever done that before, but you know.
That's so funny. We my wife has a really good friend that when she first found out that I was involved in firearms and stuff, she goes, "Oh my gosh, they're so scary." And I said, "What do you mean they're scary? Have you ever gone?" And she said, "Yeah, I went to a gun range in California." And she said, "I walked in and it was so loud and it was so overwhelming. I couldn't handle it." And she said, "I literally started trembling and I walked out because I couldn't handle it." And she said, "That's really my only experience with guns." And I said, okay, so perfect, you know, because I want to get you out there and I want to actually make you comfortable. And she'd come out and we do NRA instructor courses as well. And she'd come out and be a student for us. And she'd play the student while we actually had instructor candidates work with her as a new student. She absolutely loved it. So that was really good. But let me ask you, how important was it for you to find another fellow female instructor as far as being comfortable? Was that something that was a requirement for you, or was it just something that kind of happened?
Honestly, it was just something that happened. It worked out that way. I would have been comfortable either way. I think it's a lot. There's, you know, some moving parts up here that women deal with that, you know, men don't always. So when you're, you know, when you're in placement and proper hand placement, and our hands are a lot smaller than yours, and Heather can tell you I was having a lot of trouble racking because I had long nails and, like, you know, just trying to be safe and things like that. And of course guys understand that, obviously. Like, if I'm telling you I can't do it because my nails are in the way, you're going to understand. But it was actually, it's a little easier, and I felt a little more relaxed being with a woman who, you know, also wants to encourage people to be safe and be knowledgeable and informed, you know. But I just needed somebody to tell me, like, what to do and really give me the proper training. And I was really lucky that I ended up with Heather, because she did a really great job explaining, like, to your point, Andy, of how, like, your friend said that it was super loud when she went into the range. Well, Heather was like, it's going to be really loud. You might jump a little bit when you get in there, but like, it'll all just, you know, fade away, and just, like, you know, let me know. And she was very good at, like, pointing out all of these elements that could really frighten a first-time shooter.
Yeah, I like that idea. So we, for me, I always say this in our previous episodes when we talk about women's instruction and stuff. I love teaching women how to shoot because women pay attention. You want to learn. Us stubborn men, we're stubborn. We know everything. We know how to shoot. Our granddaddy taught us how to shoot 42 years ago, and I know how to do it today, you know. And so that's one thing for me. I love teaching women because they want to learn, and they want to learn the nuances and everything about it. You mentioned nails, and we kind of talked in the pre-show about nails, and that you had a story about a nail salon that happened to you recently that kind of tied you into wanting to carry a firearm and getting concealed carry permit. So can you share that with us? I want to get into a little bit more details about why you're actually carrying. Why do you want to carry? Because, you know, if we look at the typical gun owner, right, look like Jeremy, look like me, they don't typically look like you. They don't typically look like Heather. And I'm loving the fact that we're starting to see that change. And I hope it continues, right? But when we talk about women, firearms instruction, we don't often relate that to nails and hair salons and stuff like that. So share your story with us and tell us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah. Heather, do you want to share your nail story first, so then I can share mine?
Well, yeah, it's funny. So I had a client tell me she had a really disturbing, scenario at a nail salon where a guy came in, and I guess the nail salon had just been robbed maybe like a week prior. And the guy was just acting really suspicious. And, you know, as women, I think we have really good intuition. She said the hair on her back of her neck was sticking up, and she just felt super uncomfortable. All the other women felt uncomfortable too. And she said she just felt like getting up and running out. And then Rachel just mentioned she had almost like a similar episode. So I thought maybe they were the same nail salon at the same time. But it's interesting that no, it's two different things happening in LA. And, you know, if it's happening to two people I know, you know, think of all the other times that it's happening around LA, and how many women are feeling unsafe in their own city. So yeah, I'm anxious to hear Rachel's
Oh yeah. I mean,
encounter.
it was at the closing time of the nail salon on a Friday night at like 7:30. And I was sitting closer to the window and I could see these two guys like hollering down the street, and I was keeping an eye on them and watching where they were going. And before I could tell the owner to like lock the door, they were barging in the door, drunk, carrying a Jack Daniels bottle, open bottle on the street, which is illegal to begin with, half empty already. So you don't know what you're dealing with. And then, you know, they're in baggy clothes. It was two guys, and there's no men in this nail salon. Then they don't have a gun here. You know, the women there don't have a gun hidden under the counter. They don't even have a taser. They have nothing, you know, there's no protection. And, you know, I could tell it was like bad. It was not a good situation. They weren't just like happy drunks wandering into the nail salon. And like Heather was saying, your intuition, it like kicks in, and you're like, this is a bad situation. I have to be very careful. I have to be very aware of what I say and what I do while I'm sitting here waiting for my freaking nails to dry. You know, and in the back of your head as a woman, this might sound really dumb, but you're like, I don't want to ruin my nails. I just
My
got them
nails.
done. I don't want to get up and have to kick some butt, you know? Like, I don't want to have to like do all this, but really you're like, I will do whatever I need to survive. But it took the guys about 10 minutes to like eventually leave the salon after some coaxing. And the other girl in the salon was recording them with their phone. I pulled out my phone and started recording him, and he was like, are you recording me? And was getting really aggressive and like coming towards me. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to fight. I'm not going to just let you do this. But then I remembered, there's a very good chance this man has a gun, and the other guy too. And there's nothing to stop them from shooting me. And I can't tell because they're wearing really loose, baggy clothes. I have no clue, and I don't have a gun. So I lose, I die. Like this doesn't win. So you have to just like, you feel so helpless and you can't do anything to protect yourself. The owner of the nail salon called the police. I stayed like 20 minutes after the guys finally left, and they weren't there. They never showed up because of some things that we were talking about a little bit pre-show, of just the amount of calls that are coming in, and that, you know, a drunk guy's in a nail salon isn't high on the list. But like, that scenario could have ended really differently. Like if they did have a gun and they did pull it out and fire and shoot me or one of the other women, like they would be dead right now, you know? So it's like, I was like, I want to buy a gun. What I know I can't conceal carry in Los Angeles, but like, even for my home, knowing, like going through that experience, that is reason enough for me to have like any other proper training I need, anything else, to like have it safely in my house to protect myself. Because at the end of the day, I'm the only one who's going to do that in any situation.
Go
right?
shopping soon.
Yes, we'll go shopping.
We'll go shopping soon.
You take me shopping, Heather. Tell me what to get.
Okay. Yeah.
Nice. So I'd like to circle back to that a little bit on later on, but I want to talk about the basic handgun course. Heather, if you could talk to us a little bit about what, you know, the format of the course. Is it a 4-hour deal, 8-hour deal? And then what students must bring with them to attend and complete that course?
Actually, mine's not that long, and it's not. So I got NRA certified, but the class itself, I don't certify the students. So typically what I do is, if they're around me in Orange County, I'll go to their house and we'll do a private safety class. I'll bring dummy rounds, so the fake ammunition, and then we'll practice loading. We'll practice lining up our sights, and then we'll also go over some fun California gun laws that are changing like almost monthly here. And then we take all their new skills to the closest range, and we'll shoot for about an hour. So that's pretty much my class. And then I am contracted with LAX firing range, which is where I met Rachel. So there's pretty great. I just show up. There's a classroom upstairs, go over everything, and then downstairs is the range. So pretty much I tell people, just bring your ID and we'll cover the rest.
And closed-toed shoes.
closed-toed shoes, yes.
So that
And no deep V-necks.
not like this.
Yeah. You'll learn really fast. Why not? Right.
Hot. Yeah. She had to get one. One fell into the side of my shoe, and I was like, hot, and I couldn't get it out. So
Yeah, hot brass is always fun on the range.
Yeah.
What so Rachel, what did the first, did you take it through the, I guess you did take it through the LA Fire Range. What did the first 45 minutes to the hour of that class look like? And then what were some of the drills that you guys worked on at the range?
Yeah, so Heather took me through everything as far as like the handgun. She showed me all the pieces, told me all of the different parts, and taught me, of course, all of the safety things that, treat a gun like it's always loaded. Don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to fire, and always aim, down range, away from people. And we practiced.
She remembered.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to forget that ever. And it's all really important information that I think everybody should know, whether you want to own a firearm or not. Like, you should know how to treat these things in our world. But let's see. So we went over all of the pieces of the handgun. We went through. She taught me how to actually load my brain's just thank you, the magazine. I'm like thinking about tuning.
Not the clip. No, not a clip. It's a magazine.
How to load the magazine and how to do that, and then how to rack the gun, and when you need to, and when it's when the magazine is done, how to check make sure that the chamber is clear, and like all of these important things that you need to know. And what else did we do? Then we went down, because I had a good knowledge, a little bit of a base understanding. So then we went and did drills, and we used two different, we had the Glock and the Springfield, right?
Springfield.
And so we used the Glock first, and we shot, how close was that first one again?
We started at 5 yards.
Yes. And how did I do? I did pretty good, didn't I?
Yeah, you did great. I was very impressed.
But yes, I was having I was overthinking it a little bit during some of my, I was like, okay, breathe. Oh, and Heather was teaching me about the breathing, where you breathe in, breathe out, and then you pull the trigger, because it helps with your, so you're not moving your hands when you exhale and stuff like that. So I was really concentrating and focused, and then I was getting over focused, and she was like, just go. I'm going to count down from, 5, and what you have to fire before 1, and just kind of get it going. And I started to feel a lot more comfortable, and was able to load that magazine really quick, and put it in there, and just was ready to go. We shot
some zombies.
Yeah. Some fun targets, which I think really helps. And, it makes it kind of exciting, and takes away some of that, it made it a little more fun to have some zombies to fire at, and not kill the blonde bimbo in the middle with the big boob, and I didn't. She survived.
Nope, she survived.
We can send you pictures and video of all of this. There's proof, okay?
You mean you didn't want to shoot the big boob girl at least once?
No. No. But it was really fun. I really enjoyed it when we were down there. And I was so prepared then, when I had to go just a week later to meet with one of my clients that's in the firearm industry and actually fire. And I mean, I had to talk on camera, and then, remember all the words I'm saying, and then do my interviews, but then put the microphone down and pick up the firearm and aim and load and shoot. And if you don't know what you're doing, that's really overwhelming and very anxiety ridden. And I didn't feel that way at all. And I did really well. And I'm looking forward to doing some more.
That's great. So when you decided to take this course, and you've gone through the basic pistol, so Heather, this is not an NRA course then, correct? It's just a basic handgun. Okay.
Basic handgun. Mhm.
Gotcha. So now that you've done that, you've gone through the handgun, you've gone through the safety, learn how to load magazines, shooting the zombies and all that. What's next for you, Rachel? What is your plan in the
Ooh.
future to continue your continuum of training?
You know, I would like to do a little more training, even just some more repetition, right? The more you do it, the more comfortable you feel as far as handguns go, for sure. Something I would like to do would be I've never done any sort of hunting, like in that space, in the outdoors space, and see what that's like. But then was brought to my attention that I would have to be okay with like killing an animal, you know? And I mean, obviously you, like if it was deer hunting season or something, wherever that would be, you keep the meat and you use the whole animal. It doesn't just like nothing, doesn't just lay there. That sounds so bad. I don't know anything about that world. I've never been hunting, so as you can clearly tell. So I think that would be interesting, and I'd have to really ask myself if I was okay with doing that. But knowing that it's going to be consumed and used, and not just for for true sport. And I really am very serious about getting my own firearm for my home.
Awesome.
Because it's after going through that experience at the nail salon. I mean, I know I can't conceal carry here in Los Angeles, but unless I had like millions of dollars to pay to get a concealed carry.
Sure, yeah.
I don't yet. I'm not Sylvester Stallone, so I can't do that.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Right? But yeah, I think that's really something that I want to do. But I would want to do a little bit more training and have some more, be really comfortable with it, because at the same time, like when you take on that responsibility of, okay, I'm going to buy a handgun to keep in my home for my personal protection. It's the same thing in hunting. Like, am I okay with killing a deer? But like, am I okay with having to, shoot a home invader, possibly killing them, possibly just to injure them to get out safely, right? Which is what you would try to do. But like, do I want to do that? Am I willing to do that? That's a question I have to really ask myself. It's different when it's an in the moment situation, right? Where it's your life and death, and you haven't made this active choice to say, I'm going to protect myself. So I think I have to ask myself that question. And either way, I would still really want to do a little more practicing and do some more handgun training, just so that if there was a situation, like, how do I disarm somebody who has one? Like, how could I have been better prepared in that nail salon? Like, just under the assumption that those two gentlemen might have had guns. And even if I don't, what else can I do? How else can I protect myself? And I don't think there's enough of that out there, like regardless of your gun laws, wherever you are, or if you don't feel comfortable concealed carrying and taking on that moral responsibility of like, okay, well, if I'm going to carry this and something happens, I'm willing to do that. I think that's a really brave decision that so many people make. And, all of our law enforcement and military and all of that. I mean, that's a really big decision. So so I would want to try to find some more sort of like, I don't even know if that's like really self-defense training. I don't really know that. I think it needs to be a little more specific to firearm safety and how to disarm somebody who is carrying, right? I don't know.
I think you would really enjoy hunting. It's the experience. I've been once, and it was a great experience. It really makes you understand, okay, my meat does not come from the grocery store. And I ate all the meat that came from the birds that we got. And I think you would think it was a good experience.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm open to trying all kinds of experiences, and especially that. And, but yeah, it's a different.
I think we might have.
Uh-oh.
There we
Are
go.
you there? Oh.
Okay.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
You're back.
I think it's really important for women to have the knowledge about all of these things. Firearm, they should take a basic handgun class, and they should call Heather and do this, and they should listen to this podcast and hear about other people's experience and what to expect and what not to expect, and just to have the knowledge. That's what made me feel so comfortable in this industry.
Kind of in that same vein, Heather, who is your basic handgun student? Who does that tend to be, and who should take this class?
Who should take this class? Surprisingly, I do have a lot of men that come, and most of them had said they've shot before, but it was like 20 years ago, and they just want a refresher. Say if they just moved to California and they want to know the laws, and just kind of know what they need to do prior to purchasing a firearm. Plus, at the range, you can test all the firearms, which is really great. And then also I'll have men who are married and they say, I don't want to teach my wife how to shoot. Can you teach my wife how to shoot? Which I'm all about. And then a lot of times we have parents and kids come in as well, which I really like teaching them.
Those are some good husbands there. If they recognize that they should not be the ones teaching their wife how to shoot. We'll get the husband and wife couple in class, and it's always, we start that off and we say, hey, you guys are going to shoot on this in the same relay, and you're going to be on opposite ends of the line, right? Because otherwise, the guy is going to be behind the wife, coaching her and trying to improve her shooting, and really all she has to do is trust herself, stop listening to that guy, and she'll outshoot him, 7 days out of the week, twice on Sunday. And that's typically what we see. But so we were talking about receiving additional training, and Rachel was, she was asking, should it be self-defense training or handgun training? What are some additional classes that you would like your students to take after completing your basic handgun course?
Well, in Orange County, we have a very high success rate to get a concealed carry permit. There's quite a few shooting simulators. So if they were interested in getting a concealed carry permit, I definitely recommend a few places in Orange County where, it's like the CO2, it's actual Glocks, but they have these huge panels with real people in the videos. It seems very real. And they give really good tips on what you should do in real life situations. But again, it's not live ammunition. So I think it makes people a little bit more comfortable. But the places that I know, they give really good information about what to do in those situations when it comes to concealed carry. However, if they live in LA County and there's just no, like 0.002% chance to get a concealed carry permit, again, unless you're Sylvester Stallone or Ben Affleck and you can donate millions of dollars to the sheriff's campaign, which is very unfortunate that that's how it is. Then I would just, I would say come at least once a month to a range, say in Los Angeles, and just practice being comfortable with your firearm. Because I think it's tough when people come in for one lesson, they go home and then they put the gun away for 6 months. If you take out a handgun, you're kind of like, okay, wait, what button was this again? Or how do I take out the magazine? Things of that nature. So just training, I think, is important in general.
Yeah, we can't preach that enough. Training. So Rachel, you've got to get back to the range, and you've got to get back there with Heather to make sure that you continue that training. We mentioned, unfortunately for California, you guys are really limited in what you can carry as far as concealed. Heather's mentioned that the success rate's a little bit higher in OC, but probably not in LA. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost complete polar opposites. In Orange County, it's basically a 99% success rate now. And then I'm not kidding, when in LA County, it's 0.002%.
Wow. You have to be Sylvester Stallone to get it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah,
There's
it's really sad that the situation that unfortunately, like for Rachel, that you're in, to be able to not, to not be able to get a concealed carry permit. So that's what makes it really difficult for you, even for the continuum of training, because everything that you're learning is basically going to be just about for home use, and that's it. We've talked about it many times on our podcasts, and I think addition to handgun training, medical training. Start reading some books. I'm sure if you haven't already, When Violence is the Answer by Tim Larkin, The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. You guys talked about that intuition, those little hairs in the back of your neck raising up. That's a thing. That's a real thing that we've got to learn, and we got to take that stuff to heart. And let's say you get those weird little hairs raising up in the back of your neck and you leave, but nothing happened. What did it cost you? Nothing, right? So if you didn't listen and you stayed and something happened, what does it cost you? Potentially could be everything. So I think that's awesome that you yourself, Rachel, not only are you wanting to get into just basic handguns, learning how to hunt. Absolutely. I think there's some involvement there as far as with firearms and rifles, stuff like that, to maybe consider for home defense use as well. I'm sure Heather can turn you on to the firearms and the stuff needed to do to that in the future. So I think that's great. Heather, for your class, how many rounds do you guys typically shoot?
It depends. So the class comes with 50 rounds, and sometimes in that hour, people just finish the 50 rounds. I've had one student take like a minute per shot, which is fine. And then I've had other people just bam, bam, bam. They go through 50 rounds so fast, and they're like, "Can we get another 50 rounds?" So I'd say the most would be 100 in an hour.
About an hour. About an hour is what you spend on the range, though, correct?
Yes.
Nice.
But
And
that
so-
felt good. Like when I was there with her doing that, like it didn't feel like it was too much or not enough for me. It was like just the right amount to like really get a feel for it and feel comfortable. And I mean, yeah, it would, like if we had time, like, yeah, let's get some more, and let's keep going. But it felt good to me, at least I can offer that perspective.
Yeah, I think 100 rounds, 50 rounds even for a basic handgun course is more than enough. Andy and I have taken classes where the round count was much higher, but the learning really stopped after 50 rounds. And then especially for new shooters, somebody that had never shot a handgun before, if you take a 200 or 100 round class, it can become overwhelming. And at the end of the day, your wrist is hurting and your shoulders are hurting, and it's like, man, really, is it worth it? I want to circle back to, actually, I want to. How difficult is it to circumvent the? Because it's your county of residence, right? The sheriff from that county has to issue your license. Do you have to have like 6 months of living at that address? Can it be like, what do you have to do to prove your address in California?
Well, you could have a bill with your address that you could turn in. I know the sheriff's department did. They came and knocked on my door, made sure I lived here. But I know that I feel like with Orange County, they are very proactive. And even if you called today and requested your interview, which is the first part of the process, they'll say, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow? Come on down." And I know with your good cause for Orange County, they're just looking for one extra thing besides, it's my constitutional right. So if you go hiking and you fear for mountain lions, that's your good cause right there. But as far as proving residence, I think it's just your license and then maybe a few bills where your address is on the bills.
No, just people couldn't use their buddy's house in Orange County and kind of circumvent or skirt that. I'd imagine they have things in place because California tends to be one of those places where you can have it in Orange County and then LA County. There's not a snowball's chance in hell to get a concealed carry license.
It's interesting. I just found out that if you live in LA County, but you work in Orange County, you can apply. And I'm sure you would be given the permit. However, you could only carry in Orange County, and every 90 days you have to reapply.
Wow.
But at least it's something, right?
Mhm.
That is ridiculous. And this coming from, Andy and I, we live in a state where the training requirement is 15 hours, which is the second longest training requirement in the country. But other than that, it's relatively simple. It's a $100 application fee. What's the application fee in California? Does it vary from county to county?
I believe so. I think the whole entire process was about $500 because you have to pay for the application. I think the application was 100. You have to get your fingerprints done, and that was about another 100. And then you have to take the 8-hour course, which those prices kind of vary between like 150 to maybe $250. And I think I had to pay a few more dollars to actually pick up the permit, the license too. So yeah, about $500
Holy cow.
And
overall.
do you have to re-up that every year, Heather?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Yeah, we tried to get it to be every 5 years, but unfortunately that didn't pass. So it's every 2 years.
What's the training requirement at the 2-year mark?
I think it's 72 rounds from 3 yards, 5 yards, and 7 yards.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Damn,
Is that different for you guys in the other states where you guys are?
Yeah, it's a 15-hour class, which is a bit longer than we would like it to be. The qualification is 25 rounds, 15 rounds from 3 yards, 10 rounds from 7 yards, no time requirement. That's the only shooting that you have to do. We'll typically shoot another 75 rounds or 100 rounds or so. And then at the 2-year mark, you can watch the state's PowerPoint video online and take a short quiz, or you can attend a 2-hour range session or 2-hour refresher course. And then at the 4-year mark, you have to take a 4-hour class, pay a $75 renewal application fee, and it's the same shooting qualification. We've had a legally.
Can you have unlimited amount of firearms on your permit, or is it limited?
So you have to qualify with a semi-auto and a revolver if you want to carry semi-auto and or a revolver. If you only qualify with a semi-auto, you can only carry a semi-auto, and then you have to qualify with the largest caliber that you want to carry. So if you only qualify with a 9mm, you can only carry a 9mm or anything smaller. And that's kind of, it's silly in our opinion. We've had a legally blind student pass the qualification. It's not difficult at all to pass. I don't think we've had anybody fail it. Typically, the students that come close to having to reshoot it, there's a lot of anticipating the recoil, and maybe some, sight alignment issues, but generally it's not a difficult qualification to pass. And it's a 12 by 18 inch target. So it's not like a small target. So you're going to get just about the chest of an average size man to shoot at. What's the qualification there at, is it 3, 5, and 7 yards?
It is. Yeah. 3, 5, 7.
What's the,
and you have to qualify with every single gun you're putting on your permit, but in Orange County, it's unlimited. So that's kind of nice.
So if you want to, it's by gun or by caliber?
By every single gun, you have to qualify. But I think the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and so on, it's only 20 rounds you have to qualify with.
Oh, that is ridiculous.
How is that tracked? By serial number or?
Yeah, serial number.
Serial number and the government spying on you. That's insane. That is insane.
So gun registration for sure.
Yeah. What is your goal for your students after completing your basic handgun course?
Really just to keep it up, feel comfortable, feel confident with handguns. I'm a huge proponent of concealed carry. So if they are in a county that allows it, I would love to see more students get their permit. But really just to keep up the training and feel safe in their home too. Like for Rachel, if she were to, I know if she were to buy one, and I'm going to take you, I know she'll feel safer, and that would make me feel so good.
Yeah. I don't know that my golf club against the wall is going to do much, I mean, it'll do something, but that's not going to do anything against somebody with a gun.
Oh, man. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see students having in the class?
I think just a huge fear going into it for those who have never shot before. I'll have to say, like, one of the best parts of the job is when it's typically females, they'll come in and they're just shaking. They're so scared, and I feel genuinely bad for them. And I'll put my hand on their shoulder, just kind of give them that extra reinforcement. But then once they shoot their first like 2 or 3 magazines, they calm down. But I think just like when they're walking in and they hear, if people are shooting like huge rifles, they're just like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? But typically once they start really focusing on their target, I feel like it all kind of goes away and they get more comfortable. So I guess just getting comfortable with the fact that they're, when I talk about, when the firing pin hits the primer and there's an explosion, people are like, oh my gosh, there's going to be an explosion in my face. Like, but I think after they shoot a few rounds, they get more comfortable.
It's funny that you mentioned that. And I don't think it's something that people consciously connect, but for a lot of new students, when we see them anticipating the recoil, it's the fact that they know that that's what's going to happen. Like they know there's going to be an explosion going off not that far in front of their face. And that's when they kind of like try to shrink into themselves. And that's when they really anticipate that recoil. And it's different than when you have somebody that's been shooting a handgun for a while and then they forget when the trigger, when it's going to go bang. But Andy works with quite a few students where they have that. And then we found that repetition is like the greatest way to overcome that. What are your thoughts on that with those new students that really have that just kind of innate fear of the explosion?
I'll typically tell them, I actually not so much the fear of the explosion, but when I was shooting, I would just anticipate, and my shots were constantly going down in the beginning. And so I realized once I had a really tight grip and just a really, really easy trigger pull, that seems to help. And then if it doesn't, I'll start doing the countdown, like just be ready to go, pull the slack out. I'm going to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As soon as you hear me count down, you just squeeze that trigger. And then I think that kind of helps with any of the distraction too. So I see a lot of people shooting the ground to actually hitting the target after counting down, and sometimes even a bullseye. So.
Yeah, that's great that you mentioned that. For me, you go to the NRA basic class, right? And it's sight alignment, sight picture, trigger control, and everything else. And no one mentions grip in the NRA basic pistol, the actual course, right? As an instructor, and grip is so important. Because if you can't grip the gun, you can't manage your sights, you can't pull the trigger. And so I think that's awesome, Heather, that you've acknowledged that grip is so important for you. And we do basically the same exact thing that you mentioned. Is when you have somebody anticipating the recoil and they're kind of afraid of that explosion, hold on to the gun, count to 10. As you count to 10, pull the trigger, do it out loud with me. That way they're having to verbally say it, they're having to verbally think about it, and they're kind of fading away of that thought of that big kaboom, that's about to happen in front of their face. So that's awesome. I think that's the biggest one. Rachel, was that something that you were concerned with the recoil and the bang and the explosion in the beginning? Did that go away, or how did you kind of get past that?
I don't know. With you, Heather, I don't know if I really had much of that. But the first time I did, I was at like a seated position with, I don't even remember what it was, but it was like a giant thing with a scope. And it was like, they told me it was going to be a loud bang and the recoil was coming. And I think I just kind of was like, I don't know what, I got to just do this. I don't know what that, I know what that means, but like, until you experience it the first time, then you're like, oh, okay, I get it. All right. That was like a little scary, but now I know that that's happening and it's okay. Like, cause I'm just focused on my sights and I'm trying to hit this target, and like the recoil isn't really as scary to me.
I think with Rachel, it was more okay, how do I go from having a not loaded gun to loading the gun and getting that round in the chamber? Just the steps and getting comfortable how it actually works.
Yeah, like how do all of these pieces, like I know what all these pieces are individually and how it all goes together, but like when you're actually doing it and like doing it in a quickly confident, comfortable manner, like am I doing it right? Are my hands in the right place? Is my grip correct? Like, you know, all of these elements that are important. And I think Heather would agree. I mean, I took it very seriously, and I really wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing, and I wanted to learn and know and be knowledgeable about this, and continue to be knowledgeable. But yeah, the loud boom and the recoil didn't bother me. But what was interesting was when after we left, I was like, I love this smell. The smell of
Yeah.
what is that, like sulfur, or like what is it?
Freedom.
Gunpowder.
Yeah.
There
I think
we
in
go.
the state of California,
Freedom.
it causes
Freedom.
cancer, but everywhere else it causes freedom.
That smell, like I could smell it, and I was like, this smells good to me. Like we should bottle this and sell this. But it's not as scary. Like once Heather walks you through everything and explains how all of the pieces of the handgun work, and you're like, okay, well that makes sense. That's why it would go boom, and that's why there's this, you know, spark that comes out, and you know, the chamber goes out this way and the bullet goes this way. And once you sort of have like a rational understanding of it, you're like, okay. And then when you go, I mean, I wasn't worried about the recoil. I was at one point when we changed I was aiming for a higher target on one of the zombies on the sheet, and I had to have my arms up a lot higher. And I think that was, you know, because I'm like going for a higher target, and that's when I was a little concerned. I'm like, is this thing gonna like come back and hit me? Am I gonna hit myself in the head? And she's like, no, but it's not. You're gonna be fine. That's not gonna happen. But I had this irrational, unknown thought that was what was going to happen. But once, you know, Heather was like, no, you're going to be fine. Just get that zombie. You know?
I think students are relieved when I show them on the Glock, just the tiny safety on the trigger. And I tell people, you know, this has to be pressed down in order to fire. So if it drops, it's not going to fire. People go, oh, okay. Like, they just, after the class, they realize I have to do something for this gun to go off. Like you were saying, like I'm in charge. It's up to me for this gun to fire. So I think that's when people realize guns are inanimate objects.
Yeah. You know, I growing up, right, you always joke with saying, you know, you're not the boss of me, right? So that's one thing that I always tell everybody. And when I have somebody that's kind of a little bit afraid, or look, you be the boss of the gun. Don't let the gun be the boss of you. You're going to manage the gun. You're going to be the one that's going to control this firearm, and you tell it what to do. And so a lot of times you see the heads like, oh, okay, I get it, right? So Heather, you mentioned your husband 14 plus years ago, right? That was kind of into firearms. Who's your mentor? Who's the one that kind of got you into firearms and training and learning how to use firearms, unless other than your husband, of course?
It was definitely my husband for sure. Yeah, he was in the Navy, and it's funny because his parents, I think his dad got him a BB gun, and his mom was like, "Nope, you're not gonna allow your son to have this," and it had like a total reverse effect. So he was thinking about becoming a firefighter. He's like, "Nope, I want to carry a gun." So he got me into shooting, but then after I was working for the California Rifle Pistol Association for a while. Like sometimes we would go out and train, and I just totally fell in love with it. It was like, not only was it really fun to shoot, but I felt like, you know, and my husband was gone for 2 weeks at a time for the Navy Reserve. I just felt so much safer knowing that I could put my safety into my own hands. I wasn't going to have to, you know, have my husband or wait for police to come to my rescue if I needed it, like we were just talking about. So definitely credit goes to the good old ball and chain.
That's kind of typically the way it works. I with my wife, we've been together, gosh, she'd kill me if I didn't. I think about 15 years now. We've been married just not even quite a year yet, but we've been together for 15 years. And it was kind of the same thing when she came in to me. I was like, I love firearms, and basically, I'm gonna have to have you learn at least how they work and the safety of them and understand what they do, because we tell a story in our class. One of our other instructors, he has a family member that they grew up kind of the husband takes care of the wife kind of deal, and she was never introduced into firearms, and he always kept a revolver up on the top shelf of the closet. And when they sold their home, he was out moving everything. She was cleaning the closet out. She reached up and she grabbed something, and unfortunately she got her thumb inside the trigger and pulled the trigger, and it ended her life that day. And that story, just he's one of my best friends, and that story really hits close to me, as far as not being able to educate, at the very least, educate your loved ones on where they're at, what do they do, how do they work. Even if you don't want to go out and shoot and you don't want to shoot a gun, fine, but we've got to at least teach you, like, hey, this is what this thing does, this is where it's at, to where we can avoid some of these catastrophic things like this. And so I think that's very important, that even as any loved ones, and we've had people that come into our concealed carry class where, why are you here? We ask, and usually the wife's like, well, I just got married to my husband. He's a big gun guy. And he said, basically, in order for us to get married, I have to come take this class. And she was kind of anti-gun a little bit in the beginning. And by the end of the course and everything, she's like, I'm so excited. I love guns so much. I want to learn more. I want to come back. And there's no better feeling to see the smile on people's faces when they pull the trigger and they actually have fun, and they see, as you were talking about, Heather, I'm the boss of the gun. The gun isn't the boss of me, and I can control that. So I think that's great.
One of the very first phone calls I got, it was a friend of a friend. She said, oh, so-and-so said, you know a lot about guns. My husband, he just got one for Christmas. I don't know anything about it. I think it's called a Glack. And I was like, don't touch anything. I'll be right there to come help you. But we've been shooting a lot, and yeah, it's great to have people who know nothing about guns go from that to, seeing them at the range, which is awesome.
Oh, Heather, I saw you posted on your Insta that what you wanted for your birthday. I think that's a really good story to share with the guys and with the audience for a first timer.
Yeah, one of my best friends, she asked, what do you want for your birthday? And the last thing she wanted me to say was to take you shooting. And she was a good sport, and she went with me, and she actually really liked it. I wasn't expecting her to enjoy it as much as she did. I thought for sure we'd go. I just wanted her to shoot like 20 rounds, and I would be so happy. And but instead she was like, oh, should we go buy some more ammo? And that was her first time ever shooting. So it was a great birthday present.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's a great way to get somebody to get out there and go shooting with you. Hey, it's my birthday present. This is what you need to do. And that's awesome that you're putting that out there for, friends and friends of friends. I think in the political climate that we're in right now, specifically with guns, I think the biggest thing that we can do, our side can do, gun owners can do, is just take people to shoot, not to convert them, but just take them to have the experience, right? And then do it in a responsible, in a fun way, right? Don't get out there and, like, we're in a couple of the Facebook groups that we're in, people are saying, oh, I'm going to take, such and such shooting. They've never shot before. What should I do? Right. And it's like, people say, oh, make sure they're gripping the gun. No, just make sure they're safe and they have fun. And you can worry about making them better shooters when they want to cross that bridge. Right. I think everybody wants to take somebody who's never been shooting before and try to convert them and turn them into this great marksman and this great shooter. And it's like, that's not what they want right now. Like, that's not what you wanted the first time you went shooting, right? The first time you went shooting, you probably just wanted to go for the experience. And then, depending on how that experience goes, you want to pursue some shooting more. And then eventually you'll want to take a class, right? And then if it's a good class, you'll want to take another class. I think the basic handgun course is probably the most critical course that a person can take, right? And especially like here in New Mexico, we were talking in the pre-show about, people not taking the NRA basic course because you have to take a 15-hour concealed carry course. But in the states where, like California, Heather, it sounds like a lot of your students don't necessarily have to take the class, right? But they're taking the class because they want to take it and they want to get the skills and the knowledge to be responsible gun owners, right? And then I can only imagine, right? It sounds like that class is handled in such a way that those students will then go, and like you said, you just want them to go to the range more, practice more. The more they do that, the more likely they're going to actually take a class. So it's great that there are still quality basic handgun courses being offered, because it is the most critical course that a person can take. And for a lot of folks, it'll determine whether or not they become lifelong shooters and whether or not they actually shoot a gun again, right? Or go out there and take some classes. So that's my little soapbox about the beginner classing or classes, and the basic handgun, the entry level concealed carry, those types of courses. I think more folks should offer them. Sorry, I cut you off.
And it's a good time to learn the laws as well, because sometimes I know at the ranges people come in with loaded guns, loaded magazines, which is not allowed in California. So just to know like how to, if you were to purchase one in the future, how to transport it, who can borrow it. In California, it's just husband and wife who can borrow guns. So just learning the important laws to not get in trouble.
Oh yeah, because I'd imagine if you get arrested in California for a firearms violation, they're throwing the book at you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But
And are those felony cases?
If you drink with a straw,
Yeah.
they'll also throw the book at you. So.
What gets you in more trouble? You carrying a handgun unlawfully or drinking from a straw?
I think publicly you'll be shamed more for drinking out of a plastic straw than you would with a handgun.
I don't know if that's a relief or a.
I know.
So is it a felony if you have a loaded magazine or a loaded firearm in California without a concealed carry license?
How to conceal? I don't know if it's for just a loaded magazine. I don't think it would be a felony. But right, yeah, but yeah, I'd have to check with my husband about if actually we were just talking about this. Someone he knows pulled over a woman, and she did have a handgun in her glove compartment. She didn't have a permit, and he took her into the station, and I believe it was the watch commander said, hey, this is up to you. It's up to your discretion. She's using this for personal protection. Do you really want to arrest her? Mm-hmm. And that guy was a jerk, and he did end up arresting her. But it's pretty much, the cop's discretion. But yeah,
she had a guy that said, "Hey, dude, do you really want to be this guy?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's the guy I'm going to be today."
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh, unfortunately.
That's like a tough decision to make, though, because like you don't know that woman. Is she just saying that? Is she like, I'll play the devil's advocate here, right? Like, True. What happens if he lets that woman go and she does do something that she's not supposed to? Then that cop is to blame for this woman's behavior, right? I mean, I don't.
No, yeah, I can definitely see that. And then if the next person he pulls over in the same circumstances, if he arrests the next person, then it becomes discrimination or so.
Right.
Yeah, there's so many factors at play that it's just like, if she really was just using it for protection and that happened, I mean, to her, that sucks. But like, there's so many other people. It's all the other people out there that you can't control that, like, you said something about responsible gun owners. And my first thought was, well, isn't everybody a responsible gun owner? Like, doesn't everybody want to tell their spouse and make them take a course and inform them about the revolver in the closet and stuff like that? And then I remembered that not everybody is that way, not to a fault, but just, You know, it's not always everybody's initial reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's it goes as far as deep in the weeds as you want to go with it, right? We have, as I was saying earlier, we have the people that, you know, Grandpappy taught me how to shoot, and he was a World War II veteran. Now I know how to shoot, and I don't need any more training. And then there's just bad people, you know, there's bad, irresponsible people. You know, pretty often we see this stuff, and not to go on the same soapbox, but pretty often we see this stuff. You know, the Second Amendment is my permit to carry concealed, or, you know, shall not be infringed, but yet we're getting infringed on every single day. I mean, you guys are probably more of an example than anybody, being in California, especially LA County, right? And so we'd like to think that everybody's responsible, but the truth is we're not. The other part of that is, and to kind of go back on the devil's advocate, if you look at Shanine Allen, I don't know if you're familiar with her case. She had a firearm that was legal in her state. She crossed state lines, got pulled over for speeding, and she let the officer know, hey, I have this firearm in here. Well, hey, that firearm's illegal. I'm gonna arrest you, and I'm gonna arrest you for felonies. And she was a mother of two. And you know, we've talked about this before. The same prosecuting attorney is the same guy that let Ray Rice off from knocking his girlfriend out in an elevator, right? And said, oh, you know what? You're a law-abiding, responsible gun owner. Let's just put you in prison for 2 years instead of giving you the max penalty, right? So the other side of that too is we break laws every day. No matter who you are, no matter what you are, no matter where you are, you're going to break some kind of law. And it's such a tough situation, the way the laws are. And for police officers, the same thing, as you said. You know, you have one that he doesn't do anything, and just so happens this is the mass murderer that goes to the mall, right? It makes it so difficult. And for Heather, I think you said your husband's a sheriff, right? Did you say?
He is, yes.
So for situations like that, I'm sure he could probably speak on this discretion more than anybody, and sometimes they just don't have that.
Yeah, it's tough with the laws being so different from state to state, and I think that's where the education piece is so huge for anybody who's a gun owner to know, like, what are the laws in New Mexico? Can I take this? What happens if I have a gun in my home and I want to drive down the street and I get pulled over? Like, what happens? Like, if I'm driving to the range to go shooting with Heather, like, I don't know. These are things I need to figure out before I make a purchase. Like, how, you know, how do I transport it? If I want to go to Orange County, like, there's so many different things at play that can really have a negative impact on both sides of the fence, right? You know, you want to keep people safe as humans. You know, we want to keep our fellow humans safe and ourselves safe, but, you know, at the same time, the laws are so different. And like you said, the Sheila, the mother with 2 kids who got arrested for that. I mean, that's a tough situation to be in, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's even worse for you guys because you're talking about 2 counties.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like it's like driving just through one light, and I'm in a different county, and it's a different law, and anything could happen if I blow a red light and break that law, for instance, and I get pulled over and have to, you know, say, oh, by the way, I have a firearm in the trunk. I'm driving to the range to go shoot with Heather. Please don't arrest me. Like, I mean, I don't know what happens.
One of the craziest laws I've heard in California is that San Francisco County outlawed hollow point rounds. It's like,
I believe it. It's
yeah.
But you can also walk naked down the street in San Francisco. So there's a lot of weird
of things in San Francisco that you can do that I don't even want to mention, but
I heard they don't even have public restrooms.
They
don't have public restrooms. You just use the street in San Francisco. That's what I've heard.
It's the Wild West.
It's crazy because, you know, on one hand, I think most responsible people would agree that laws need to be enforced. I think most responsible people would also agree that only laws worth enforcing should be laws. You in California, we can see from county to county how there's such a variance in what is legal and what is illegal, that it really creates a great opportunity for good people to fall victim of ignorance, right? And we say one of the things we express heavily in our classes, right, and it sounds like you do as well, Heather, is you have to know the laws, right?
Right.
In New Mexico, they're fairly simple. With licensed liquor establishments, it gets a little bit complicated if you were to read the statutes. But in California, like, how does somebody know the laws, right? Like, if you travel 5 minutes and you now have to worry about a completely different set of rules and laws surrounding something that you were able to legally do, a mile ago.
Right. And the fact that they change so frequently too, all over California, for instance, there's all these regulations on ammunition now. And so that passed July 1st. The good news is it's supposed to be overturned any minute now, but we're still waiting. And right now you have to have, your license has to match with the gun that was registered for your same address. It can't say federal limits apply. If it does, the background check for ammunition will cost $19 and will take 10 days to go through. So that's something new, that we have background checks for ammunition now. So yeah, like I said, hopefully that gets overturned soon.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And God bless you, because to be a firearms owner in California, you are really jumping through some hoops and dealing with some arbitrary rules and regulations and laws.
I have to give Heather a little credit because when I went to take the class with her, I couldn't have told you about concealed carry permits in LA County. I had never thought about it. This wasn't something that I had ever considered. So if it's not on your mind, I'm not going to really think about it. I had no clue that you couldn't get a concealed carry permit in LA County unless you make a significant donation, of course. But Heather was so good at telling me about the different laws and how that all works, and the bill that she was just mentioning, and informing me on all of this stuff, regardless of whatever happened, if I'm going to buy a handgun or not. And I think that's where it starts, is with you guys, the people who are, doing the teaching and the training. And, there's even something to be said to have, like some sort of medical CPR type of training too. Because like, what if an accident happens, and like, how do you treat a bullet wound, or how do you stop that bleeding? I know I'm kind of like going down a different road here, but there's so many important facets of information that can be given out in these trainings that include the laws and all of that. I think so much of it it's all kind of connected in my mind.
All I have to say is, being from California, I feel so much for the people of Virginia right now. And it's so hard. Once you lose your rights, you have to claw your way and crawl your way back to just voting to get your rights back. So I was happy to see that the assault weapon ban did not go through today. But yeah, it's going to be a rough road for the people of Virginia, I fear.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's slowing down the grabbing of gun rights. I think it started with what could be, air quotes, reasonable infringements or what have you. I don't even like using infringements, because I feel like the threepers and the real gun nuts have kind of tarnished that term. But it's one of those things where it's how do you come back from it? Like in California, how do you get it to where the sheriff of LA County cannot discriminate? You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. It's discrimination. Like, if you're going to give Ben Affleck and Sylvester Stallone a concealed carry license, but you're going to outright refuse it to 99% of other people.
Yeah. Well, the California Rifle Pistol Association and a lot of other gun organizations in California, we were pushing so hard for a sheriff named Bob Lindsay to get elected, because he would have been a, shall issue sheriff, which would have been huge. And all of the sheriffs supported him. Like, I was out in other counties in Riverside County, and I saw LA County Sheriff deputies campaigning for Bob Lindsay. But from what I've read, only like 8% of the population votes for their sheriff. Like, a lot of people didn't even know, oh, we vote for the sheriff. So just being informed of who's running your city, that's what I tell people. Like, well, how do I change? Like, well, you have to vote for someone who will be, pro Second Amendment.
Our midterm elections are in March.
Right.
Get out there and vote.
Make sure.
Local elections. Don't overlook the local elections. That's really where you have the power. That's nuts. I think we could. It sounds like we could talk for days about California laws, but I do want to give you all the rest of the evening back.
I wanted to say one other thing. So for people who want information or experiences, I know that the NSSF, the people who put on SHOT Show, have a lot of really great programs for first timers, and they take people out shooting and how to help people who want to take a first timer out shooting and what to help them with. So if there are people who are listening who are like, yeah, I want to do what the guys were saying, like I want to take, somebody out and inform them and give them a good experience, they have a ton of resources, a lot of them free, all about that safety and first timers to get people into the industry in a positive way.
That's awesome. I appreciate the shout out. Yeah, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, great group. Get involved locally. Send your support to Virginia and California. You don't have to be a resident of California to join the California pro-gun groups. Just the same, like you don't have to be a resident of Virginia to join their pro-gun movement. And then hey, be nice to people that you take out shooting. Don't do that deal where you give them a
50 cal,
a 50 cal right away and have them shoot it freestanding.
No.
Be nice to those folks you take out to the range. Heather, they can find you at highcaliberoc.com or on the Instagram at highcaliber_OC. Rachel, is there any way you want to shout out your social profiles or where they can contact you if you'd like?
Sure. Just look for me at Lady on TV, because I'm a lady on TV and I have a last name that no one can spell. So
she's hysterical. She's so funny.
That's awesome.
I try. There's a good little camouflage video there that people who are listening would appreciate. I found a camouflage dress and was doing with my client that I was talking about. So yeah. But yeah, at Lady on TV.
I'm looking at your Instagram now automatically, and I'm seeing somebody in snow goggles in the middle of winter. Are you one of those reporters that has to go out and like get blown around in the wind and snow?
No, not anymore. No, I'm in the corporate and association space now, but I feel like I've done it all. I've interviewed dogs and just celebrities, Mark Cuban, regular people. People always ask like, what's your favorite interview? And I really don't have one because I love what I do. I love getting to talk to people and learn more and get information and share that information with people. And that's what I do ever since I was introduced to the firearms world. And I shot my first gun. And since my training with Heather, like anybody who talks about it, I tell them, go take a training and shoot. If you are afraid, you have to face that fear. And like, once you understand and learn how it works, you will not be nearly as afraid. And like, to your guys' point, like, you don't need to buy a gun. You don't need to have a whole, cabinet in the basement. Yeah. Just learn and feel safe. But yeah, no reporting in the snow. Luckily, I escaped that. I did cover a couple of hurricanes and had to sleep in a news station which was an interesting experience. But
Pass.
yeah, it was not the business. Long hours. Now I have my own hours and get to work on a lot of cool projects, and that's why I'm in Los Angeles.
Nice. Love it. Heather, any parting advice you have for our listeners?
I would say don't be afraid to try shooting, and also don't be afraid to tell people that you enjoyed shooting. I think a lot more people in California shoot than other people believe. So just don't be afraid to voice your support for the Second Amendment.
Awesome. Love it. And Tim K, want to thank you, want to give you a shout out for the introduction. We definitely appreciate that. We look forward to seeing everybody back here next week. Remember, it's your life, it's your safety and protection, it's your responsibility. You have a great night and see you next week.